フライ、インフィニティウォーター、フリーダム、マジックブースト、インドミタビリティ、センサーブースト、ヘブンリーオーラ、アブショーオブション、ペネトレートアップ。さあ行くぞ。
Welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3 in a single hit. If you missed the first episode, I strongly implore you to watch it before this. It took a bit longer than expected to make this video, but I'm already done with Act 3, so hopefully the final part will be out within a week or so. Anyways, let's get right into it. Before continuing on towards the crash in Act 2, we still have a few things to take care of that I missed in Act 1, starting off with the Adamantine Shield. As a lot of you pointed out, I forgot that there are 2 Mithril ores available. And since I'm only using one character, I might as well craft the shield using the second one. Even though it doesn't give us any extra AC boost, it's still a really nice upgrade compared to the other garbage one we were using. Another extremely important thing that was pointed out to me is that I've been using the wrong damage spell this entire time. Turns out that there's a way better spell that can be used other than Chromatic Orb, Witch Bolt. Just like this nice gentleman pointed out, Chromatic Orb starts out better at level 1 and 2, but since Witch Bolt's initial cast gets a 1d12 bonus, instead of Chromatic Orb's measly 1d8 per upcast, it quickly becomes better. Already at level 3 it does 36 damage, meaning that our base max damage just shot up from 128 to 144. The only negative part with Witch Bolt is that it uses concentration, but seeing as the only real concentration that comes to mind is haste and possibly hold person, it's not that big of a deal at all. Lastly, I also go back and talk to this couple standing over their dead friend, really close to the grove, for another parasite. This means that I could in fact just have gotten Luck of the Far Realms way earlier than Flynn, as many of you pointed out. In any case, this gives us Psionic Overload for a free 1d4 psychic damage to all our attacks. Thank you to everyone who commented, I read them all and they really do help. Also, I just gotta throw this out there because I found it really funny. According to YouTube, 100% of the people watching are not subscribed. I'm not sure how this adds up to 100, but if you're enjoying this content and want to be, according to YouTube at least, the literal first person to subscribe to the channel, feel free to do so. We speak to this lady who tells us she wants a gift egg. Me not having any interest in human trafficking though, I politely decline her offer. 2 Death Shepherds await us at the top of this cliff. Death Shepherds always start with 20 temporary hit points that make them resistant to all damage. Apart from that, they also have 50 base HP, making it really hard to actually kill them. So I decide the best way of dealing with them is the tried and true Thunderwave method, and after some fiddling around, I get them to this perfect spot. The monastery comes next, and after dealing with a few very drunk kobolds, we encounter some unstable beasts on the top floor. They may not be very strong, but if you use any spell in their presence, they will trigger a random effect at the start of their turn. Luckily, these 3 start off far enough away from the other packs as to not trigger them, and after killing 4 of the remaining 6, the last 2 just explodes for a bit of force damage. Killing 2 eagles, we make it to this puzzle. By putting all 3 of the ceremonial weapons found around the monastery on the correct pillars, we gain access to a very nice weapon down the line. I get the waypoint in the crash, but before slaughtering all the Githyanki, I still want one more level. So I move back to Act 2 and call over the Spider-Man. He tells us to follow him to Moonrise Tower, but after this ambush I decide to side against them, even though he has a brutal 239 HP. The fight starts out great as I take out the 2 half-orcs, the backbone of their damage turn 1. With them dead, I leave the small goblins for the Harpers to deal with, and focus all my attention on Karnis? Is that how you say his name? I first go for this spot here, and I quickly learn that keeping a nice distance between us is the only way to go. After dashing away and watching the final Harpers get absolutely bodied, I find a suitable chasm. Spider goes down, and Moon Lantern acquired. With that, I move on to the Last Light Inn, meet Jaheira, and after some convincing from Mole, we are let in. Quartermaster Tally is the first person to speak to, as she has some truly insanely good items for us to use. Pick up this amulet with shield, the Cloak of Protection for another free Ring of Protection, and the Shield of Devotion, which not only gives us 10 more base HP thanks to aid, but also has another level 1 spell slot. Damon is also here, and he sells the Darkfire Shortbow, an absolutely insane bow that not only gives us resistance to both fire and cold damage, but also gives us a free use of haste once every long rest. Maddis also makes a return, and she sells us the Evasive Shoots for +1 bonus AC. Not a bad option at all. I released the fairy, who gives us the Pixie's Blessing. This lets us traverse Act 2 even where the shadows are at their strongest. It also gives me enough XP for level 7, and with it level 5 Sorcerer for access to level 4 spell slots. Here we also get access to our first and basically only AoE lightning spell, Lightning Bolt. Next, it's time to approach Isabel and get ambushed by Marcus. First attempt does not start off very well. After getting pummeled, Isabel decides that walking into 2 opportunity attacks and getting paralyzed is worth her turn, and she gets beat to death shortly after. Second time around, she does this. Third time's the charm though. I roll high initiative, which lets me kill Marcus right away. And for some reason the horrors just stop right in their tracks and decide to spare Isabel. The turn comes back to me, and Lightning Bolt finishes them off, before the Heartbursts deal with the rest. I get blown up by some shadow creatures, before extinguishing these torches, spawning in a few Shadow Mastiffs. What's special about these is that they all go invisible after attacking each round. But thanks to Volo's Eye and use of the fact that you cannot actually walk where another enemy already is, I'm able to find all 4 and take them out. I also find this very weird bug that only seems to occur when you have nothing but level 2 spell slots remaining and try to make them into sorcery points. We save Roland from a few shadows and head over to the Toll House. Here we meet Geringoth Thorm. She will only let us pass if we pay her at least 6,000 gold, so I do just that and get rewarded with a signed trade visa. A very special spell that turns an enemy into gold if they fail to save 3 checks in a row. Either way, we're not leaving just yet, as I do want my gold back. I lure her over to this ledge, and fall damage does a very normal and balanced 600 damage. On her course we find our gold plus a bit extra, and a very important weapon called the Twist of Fortune. This item will be crucial later in Act 3, so just keep it in mind. We go to Moonrise, get introduced to Ketheric for the first time, before proceeding to the docks located right next to the towers, where a giant crate of parasites is located. These parasites grants us access to Call the Weak, a very useful tool in getting in that last bit of damage on certain enemies. Now it's time to return and get the Blast Pendant Amulet, located all the way back next to this Spectator in Act 1. The Blast Pendant grants us access to the Lightning Blast skill, which gives us a buff for 2 turns that makes our next cantrip or lightning spell do extra lightning damage equal to the amount of lightning charges we currently have, this being a maximum of 7. Currently, we do have issues generating lightning charges though, and our only real way without dashing for 3 turns straight is the Water Sparklers found right next to Minthara back in the Goblin Camp. Anyhow, to even get access to it, we need to deal with the Spectator and his drow. There's no way to not get surprised going into this battle, so I just have to wait and hope that the Spectator doesn't either fear or paralyze me. First Fear Ray gets saved, and the drow is nice enough to put darkness over me, making it so the Spectator can't even attempt to attack me. The drow don't seem too happy to be saved, so I also put them out of their misery. And we acquire the Blast Pendant. Moving back to Act 2, we walk into the Waning Moon and talk to another one of Ketheric's children. Does he have children? Or are they creations? I have no idea. Either way, he has a whopping 374 HP. That's even more than Merkle, the final boss of Act 2. Thankfully there's no need to actually fight him, as after clearing a few performance and constitution checks, he simply blows himself up. I now feel like I'm strong enough to handle the crash, so I go back to this room next to the infirmary. In it is this big machine that this Gith scientist promises will remove our parasite. It instead goes the other way, and the parasite only evolves, giving us the awakened buff permanently. This will let us cast all of our lifted powers using only bonus actions instead of actions. Incredibly important for things like psionic overload that otherwise would require our entire turn. I make sure to stop the scientists before she gets to go alert the others, and pick up the 3 parasites that are located in this room. This gives us Shield of Thralls, a free source of 10 temporary HP every single short rest. It's now time to deal with all the Giths waiting in the crash. After a lot of fiddling around with Minor Illusion, I get this position, which lets me wet every single one, and as the cherry on top, they all decide to line up perfectly. I do the same in the classroom, the corridor, the entrance, the hatchery, and the merchant area. But not before stealing the 3000 gold the trader is carrying. The captain quarters is next. The easier enemies all fall to lightning bolt. And we get use of lightning blast for the first time, for that tiny bit of extra damage, letting us take out Ketheric. Here we also get to see a very weird interaction with Witch Bolt. Even though hold person ends as soon as we cast Witch Bolt, since it requires concentration, it still registers the enemy as being held, and the crit is granted regardless. We slot the gift shard into the barrier machine, and kill the last remaining hull monitor that I missed for our 8th level, and thereby the very important level 6 in Sorcerer. Now you might think that sticking with Storm Sorcerer is just the way to go. Normally it would not only give us Call Lightning, a very nice AoE spell, but also Heart of the Storm. Heart of the Storm casts a small storm on enemies in an area, dealing damage equal to half of our sorcery level, which means that even as late as level 12, it's only 5 bonus damage. But even worse than that is that it's AoE, meaning that if there are other enemies close by, I won't even be able to use it, because it will damage them without actually killing them in one hit. Therefore, our only real option is to respec into the Draconic Bloodline. It's a bit sad because we are already using heavy armor, which means we don't get any use from Draconic Resilience. However, by picking a Lightning Ancestry, at level 6 we get our Elemental Affinity, granting our lightning spells extra damage equal to our Charisma modifier, which currently only is +4, but later will go as high as +7. It's time to approach the Inquisitor's chambers for the final fight with the Gith. We start off by getting Mind Steal linked, a very unpleasant condition that makes us weak to all psychic damage. Thankfully, there is only one Gith ahead of us, but his Psychic Rend still does a whopping 32 damage to us. Today really seems to be my lucky day though, as they all form a nice orderly queue at the top of the stairs. I get to eliminate the Mind Link man with a clean 200 damage crit, and Shield nullifies most of the damage I would have taken. The remaining 3 at the top of the stairs decide to line up again, and I AoE them all down. Now it's just this last one remaining, and she goes down to inflict wounds. I don't really feel like dying, so I agreed to help Vlaakith, and open this secret passageway using a grease scroll. We now arrived at the hardest boss so far. This random ass energy source. It takes 20 tries before I finally roll 20. Luckily we won't have to do that again. Okay, well, at least we're done now. Anyway, I insert the Dawnmaster's crest that we got all the way back from that one puzzle, and collect the Blood of Lathander. With the crest completed, I make sure to deal with Ketheric's dog to make the fight with him easier, before heading over to the House of Healing. Here we meet the last of Ketheric's children? I still don't know what they are. If anyone knows, then please do enlighten me. Malice Thorm, just like his long-lost alcoholic brother, has an insane 358 HP. Luckily, he can also be dealt with in a similar fashion. By telling him about Shar's teachings, we can persuade him that the only way to continue is by having him volunteer to be tested on by the sisters. And they do just that. I make sure to deal with the sisters before leaving, and pick up the battered loot for future use. Now it's time for the last Gith encounter in this playthrough. You can't actually see the Gith before triggering the encounter at least once, so I walk up before immediately running away. I return and cast Invincibility on myself to lure the Gith together with Minor Illusion, as Invisibility isn't broken by it for some reason, despite it being a spell. Since these Gith have a lot of HP, I make sure to both use Lightning Blast and Shriek before blasting them. The Gauntlet of Shar is up next. The fight outside Balthasar's chambers definitely is not an easy one to do solo. The entire mechanic revolves around destroying these Umbral Tremors, who, if left up, will summon a Justicar soldier each turn. The problem is that we can only take out a maximum of 2 per turn by twinging Guiding Bolt. To make things worse, after the first turn 4 more portals are summoned, and the turn after that another 2. The only real saving grace is the fact that Balthasar's soldiers soak up most of the damage dealt during these first turns. The Justicar has a buff called Radiant Retort, This always leaves them vulnerable to radiant damage, but it makes all sources of radiant damage dealt to them return to the caster twofold as force damage. Meaning that, even though I could use the Sunbeam spell provided by the Blood of Lathander, I would just be one-shotting myself. So the safer option is, as per usual, Lightning Bolt. There is, however, a cool trick we can use to not die to these final two. By using Survival Instinct, which resurrects us upon reaching 0 HP, allows us to tank these 2 hits that deal over 100 force each. For some reason, there's still one Justicar just chilling here, so I seize the opportunity, and by walking into Balthazar's room, I make him waste his one and only haste potion. We talk to Balthazar and make sure to pickpocket one of the most important items in this run, Balthazar's bell. He's not very pleased with us stealing it though, and I just barely have time to cast Enhanced Leap on myself before the fight starts. The bell is only meant to be used inside the Gauntlet of Shar to summon his big pal Flesh to help you with some of the encounters. Using this spell does not actually cost an action or a bonus action, but for some reason it still counts as casting Dash. This means that in combination with the Speedy Light feat, we can get 3 lightning charges every single turn without any real cost whatsoever. I get cloud killed by Balthazar twice in a row, almost killing me. Over these 3 turns though, the bell gives me 7 lightning charges, and that combined with Lightning Blast and Psionic Overload allows us to do Balthazar's entire HP pool without even using Lock of the Far Realms. For some reason, Flesh forgets that I'm here, and the encounter ends shortly after. I open the vault door right next to the fight, and collect the Callous Grow Ring, the only real ring that gives our spells any sort of damage whatsoever. I cheese the first shard trial by teleporting through this tiny window, the second one by removing all of my items before entering, making the copy of me spawn without any equipment. And the third one just by walking over here and grabbing the gem. The bait Displacer Beast comes next. Instead of following him the way he wants us to into an ambush, I jump over this gap and ambush the Meragons myself instead. Jurgir can't actually get surprised, so he starts off by throwing some bombs next to my feet. Turns out they're fairly harmless though, as you can just move them away yourself. I eliminate all the Meragons, and run away, seeing as I'm all out of spell slots. Jurgir is not too happy when I return, and he does this. Very fun and interactive. He decides to aim at me the second time around though, and it lets me eliminate the Displacer Beast. He also decides to stand next to this ledge, and I give him the shock treatment. With the Gauntlet of Shar finished, I win a hide and seek game against a child, which lets me tell Halsin about the Flaming Fist at the Last Light Inn. He tells me to meet him there, and by playing the loot we got from Malice Thorm, he awakes. Now is the time where Halsin is meant to meet you by the lakeshore, but my Halsin just simply did not head there. He just stood around here in this opening, and I couldn't even interact with him. After scouring around for a bit, I find that this can be solved by murdering Art and talking to him using Speak Dead. So I use Fog Cloud to not get spotted, but this guard spots me regardless and chases me for 1 whole minute. After that, I manage to get away and return to talk with him. He talks about Lavender, and this lets me trigger Halsin's dialogue yet again, and this time, thankfully, he actually goes to the lakeshore. The whole goal of this fight is to simply protect the portal until Halsin returns 5 turns later. This is one of the few fights where Wall of Stone actually is really good. The wall will block any melee attackers trying to get to the portal, meaning that I only have to focus my attention on the ranged ones. By standing in this exact spot, we are able to not only take out the 2 closest archers, but also the ones waiting behind in the bushes. More enemies appear, and I do my best to clear them off. The wall shows its worth by blocking all these crows, and after waiting out a turn and pushing a few into the water, the fight ends just in time for this Gith to break through the wall. Here we get another level up, which gives us access to level 5 spell slots, and thereby 240 base damage. It's now time to tackle Moonrise. We free the deep nodes, But when going for the tieflings, they decide that running away into the corridor is a better idea than just running back towards the boat. Here we also meet the first adept, who with their death ward lets them resurrect to 1 HP the first time they are killed. The adept cannot survive getting shoved into the abyss, however, so that's how we have to deal with all of them. I kill the warden and can't really do anything as I watch all the tieflings get murdered. To make things worse, the deep gnomes also just leave with the boat. Oh well. All that's left now is main Moonrise and Ketheric himself. We free the Night Song and return to handle Sorel. For having magic that lets her kill people by simply thinking about it, she goes down really easily. The real problem here is not Sorel, however. It's again the adepts and their hunger of Hadar. Since they all have Death Ward, I can't actually kill them, so I have to abandon ship, leaving Jaheira and the rest of the Harpers to fend for themselves. The enemies spend a few rounds just chilling in the Hadar cloud, almost dying, before finally pursuing me. Luckily, Moonrise is right over this chasm, so pushing them off becomes quite trivial. I killed the last skeleton standing before Ketheric and approach him on the rooftop. This first encounter is an absolute joke. Ketheric quote-unquote dies instantly, and so does his skeleton friends. But before pursuing Ketheric down the hole, I make sure to head back to this little building. By pushing these plates in the correct order, a door opens down to the basement. Interacting with this statue and clearing a check gives us a buff until long rest for an extra 5 charisma. By respeccing to 19 charisma, this puts us as a very solid 24, and thereby plus 7. The other statues also give us plus 5 to int and wisdom. Not as important, but it's still nice to have. With that, we are ready for the final showdown. No fight down here basically matters, as you have access to infinite long rests next to the elevator. The only one worth mentioning at all is the one with Sevlor. I open the pods and one-shot 2 of the Mind Flayers. Mind Blast shuts me down though, but both Sevlor and Jiva show that they are not here to play around. As they kill the Mind Flayers the turns I'm stunned. I solve this puzzle and get the Waking Mind, which I bring to this device. Interacting with the head, we get an option to purge the mind, and doing so grants us yet another permanent buff, which gives us advantage on int saving throws. I also pick up the Resonance Stone right next to it for the Stepped in Bliss effect, making everyone in an area around me, including myself, weak to psychic damage. I make sure to drink a Hill Giant Strength Elixir before approaching the final fight. These 3 idiots does some Power Rangers bullshit, and I cast Enhanced Leap before approaching Ketheric. This, combined with the Strength Potion, lets me clear the entire distance to Night Song and free her turn 1. Still, she is of little use, as Ketheric kills her in a single turn. I walk up to attempt to trigger phase 2, but forget to put light on myself before the fight, meaning that I lose all the damage from Callous Glow, so I have to waste a turn lighting myself up. Night Song wakes up again just in time to tank the smite for me. A shield and some misses later, Ketheric dies for the 3rd time, and Merkel shows up in his place. 326 damage is what we need to do. To squeeze out as much damage as possible, I made sure to shriek before killing Ketheric. Timing here is going to be really important. I reapply Wet to Merkel, use the bell for some lightning charges, and activate Lightning Blast as the buff lasts for 2 turns. I can't use my shield to block any attacks as I need a reaction for Luck of the Far Realms. It turns out fine as Merkel squanders his one and only chance to hurt me. I use the bell to get up to 7 lightning charges and activate Psionic Overload. Now it's time for some fun, simple calculations. With a crit, our Witch Bolt does 256 damage. 120 damage comes from the 5d10 base that gets doubled by the crit, and 8 from our Charisma and Lightning Charge. This hit also procs Psionic Overload and Callous Glow for another 10 damage. The Lightning Blast's base 7 damage also gets amped by our Charisma and Lightning Charge, and then doubled due to the crit for another 30 damage. Of course, this hit also triggers the extra 10 damage. And lastly, Phylar Aluve procs here for another 8 thunder damage with the extra 10 damage, and finally a last 2 damage from our lightning charges. adding all of these numbers up, we get 326 damage exactly. It's not actually that perfect due to the fact that Cold a Week would proc anyway and killing him, but I still think it's kinda cool that it adds up to the perfect number, okay? With that, we grab Ketheric's Netherstone with Act 3 just ahead. Hey, thank you for watching and making it to the end of the video. The next one is being prepared right now, it's coming. I have finished the game, so a bit of a spoiler here, but yes, you can beat this game in a single hit, it is possible. Raphael, even with his 666 HP, is very one-shottable. And hopefully I should get the video out this week. I've had a lot of things in school and stuff, so I haven't had that much time to post stuff, but it's holiday break now. So yeah, hopefully I'll get it out this week. Just keep a lookout for that. Again, thank you very much for watching, I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.